to another Coffee with Colin and thanks for tuning in. This week I want to ask a question, if I may. How happy are you? Really, how happy are you? I was at Pendulum Summit 2018 in Dublin recently in January, and Marcy Shimoff was one of the speakers, and Marcy is a #1 New York Times best-selling author, and she is one of the co-authors on the Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul series. I mean, this lady has done a lot of stuff, and she's a happiness expert. So at Pendulum 18, Marcy Shimoff spoke to me. Now, she spoke to me as one of 6,000 delegates attending, but I was listening, I was taking my own notes, and I'd like to share my interpretation of what Marcy said at Pendulum 18 for you, if I may. What she suggested, what I heard from Marcy, is that most people are just about as happy as they make up their minds to be. That happiness is in fact a decision, not necessarily a feeling. It manifests itself in a feeling, but it starts with a decision. And the question is, have you decided to be happy? Because it is a decision. She said that most people want to be happy. Most people wish they were happier. But most people don't develop happiness habits. Most people don't do anything about it. Most people don't decide to be happy. But she did speak about the fact that there are, in fact, happiness habits that you and I can practice to bring more joy into our lives. And I learned that there are two different types of people on the planet, basically, and they both are named Vic. One is victim and the other is Victor. Victim and Victor. And the question is, which one are you and I? One of the things I also learned is that we can be both, just not at the same time. We at times perhaps can be victims. We at times in fact can be victors. The happier people have decided to be victors more often. Victims don't live. Victims are lived. They're lived by others. Victims are victims of their birth circumstances, their family backgrounds, their race, their nationality, their colour, their gender, the lack of education, the lack of opportunity. That's what victims do. It's always somebody else's fault. If it's to be up to somebody else. That's what victims do. Victors, on the other hand, live. Victors decide that they want to live. When stuff happens, they make the most of it. They, in fact, happen to stuff rather than stuff happening to them. They are victors despite their birth circumstances, despite their family background, despite their race, their nationality, their colour, their gender, their education, despite everything. Victors are victors because they decide to be. Victors are glass half full people. Victors live by the mantra, if it is to be, it's up to me, simple as. And they're the two basic types of people. And you can clearly see that victims typically are unhappy. Of course they are, because stuff has happened to them the whole time. Victors are typically happy. They've decided to take control. They've decided to live their lives. And in doing so, they create happiness habits that carry them through. So if you want to be happy, well, then you've got to start creating happiness habits. And Marcy shared with us 3 truisms that I'd like to share with you, if I may. And the first of those is that we are all handicapped. Every one of us is handicapped. Some people we come across in our day-to-day life, we can clearly see are physically differently abled or disabled, physically handicapped relative to perhaps you or I. Some others that we come across, it's very obvious to see that some people are mentally disabled, mentally differently abled to you and I, mentally handicapped. But the majority of us out there are handicapped in a different way. We're handicapped by our thinking. And the problem with that is it's not seen by others. We can make allowances for somebody that's clearly physically handicapped. We can make allowances for somebody that is clearly mentally handicapped. But we rarely make allowances for the rest of us that look normal, that look regular, but in fact we're handicapped by our own thinking. And we need to realize that we are in fact handicapped by our own thinking if we allow ourselves to be handicapped by our own thinking. The second thing that Marcy said is that everybody has a happiness set point. There's a specific set point that you and I have around happiness, probably different for both of us. But the happiness set point is made up of 3 elements, and the first one of those is genetics. 50% of your happiness set point is set by your background, and you're thinking, oh, there you go, Colin, I told you I was right. It's my birth circumstances, that's why I'm not happy. No, hang on a second, let's not go there for a second. Only 50% of your happiness set point is genetic. 10% of your happiness set point is circumstance. 10% is circumstance. And again, some of you out there are saying, that's 50 and 10, that's 60%. Most of my happiness set point is set by stuff outside my control. No wonder I'm unhappy. No wonder I'm miserable. I'm right to be. But you're missing the point entirely. That's victim mentality. Victor mentality is, okay, 50% is genetic, 10% only is circumstances. Man, that leaves me 40% that I can work on. Happy days. Woohoo! What am I going to do with the 40%? And that's victor mentality. So 50% genetics, 10% your circumstance, and 40% that you have control over, your happiness habits. And then the question is, well, how do you go and change happiness habits? How do you identify some happiness habits and change them? Let's do a quick exercise for a second. Imagine curling up in a ball and saying, I'm motivated, I'm motivated, I'm motivated. It just doesn't feel right. Or imagine arms up in the air, jumping up and down, saying, I'm depressed, I'm depressed, I'm depressed. Try both of those and you'll see very quickly that the body can't lie. In fact, and your words belie what's going on inside. So we can create happiness habits within ourselves that will elevate our happiness set point, or at least allow us to get back to our happiness set point at will. And one way to do this is to realize that all of us have 60,000 thoughts going through our head every day, 60,000 every day. And here's the problem. 80% of them are negative, right? We spoke a couple of weeks ago about why do most people believe their doubts and doubt their beliefs. And that's why, because we're wired, regrettably, that 80% of what we think about is negative. So how do we begin to change that? And Marcy suggested there are 3 things we should do every single day to improve and increase our happiness set point. And the first of those is we should choose every morning and every evening, just after we wake up, just before we go to sleep, we should choose to focus on 3 things that we are happy and grateful for. Despite all the stuff in our lives, we're happy and grateful for these 3 things, A, B, and C. The second thing we need to do is, when we're focusing on the 3 things that we're happy for, is we need to grab hold of each one of those and focus on it and really internalize it for 20 seconds. Grab it, internalize it for 20 seconds, and really get a sense of how happy and grateful we are for that particular thing that's in our life. And that's morning and evening. And the third thing we can do every day to increase and improve our happiness set point is we can, when we identify one of those 60,000 thoughts coming into our brain is negative, not that we get morbid about it and start looking for them, but when we come across one that we know, oh, that's just dragging me down, well, here's something we can do to counteract that. On the basis that most of our thoughts are negative, when a negative thought comes in, we need to fight it, combat it with more than one positive thought. So something comes into your brain in the middle of the day that you know to be negative, well, then stop, take a few moments, go back to the 3 things you were happy and grateful for that morning, and repeat the exercise that you did this morning, 3 to 1. Take each of the 3 things, spend 20 seconds internalizing it and remembering why you're happy and grateful for it, and then fight those negative thoughts one at a time at a ratio of 3 to 1. One at a time at a ratio of 3 to 1. One negative thought comes in that you're aware of, stop, go back to the 3 things, internalize them, focus on them for 20 seconds, and guarantee that your mood will lift. Guarantee that your happiness set point will begin to rise. And if you practice this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it follows that over time you will improve and increase your happiness set point. And in conclusion, I'd simply like to invite you to be happy. Simple as. Be happy. As the famous Nike ad said many years ago, just do it. Be happy. Happiness is a decision. Do not be a victim. Be a victor. Practice happiness habits. Realize that your happiness is 50% genetics, only 10% circumstance, and 40% you're in control of. 40% is happiness habits. How are you going to develop those happiness habits? 3 things that you're going to be happy and grateful for in the morning, 3 things you're happy and grateful for in the evening, and then you're going to combat those negative thoughts as they come in during the day on a 3 to 1 basis. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. I hope and trust that you got something from it. If you've enjoyed it, you think somebody else would benefit, I'd be delighted if you'd pass the link on. Please share the link. If it's your first time here, go to the homepage, ColmO'BrienMotivation.com, leave me some details, and I'll make sure you get stuff like this on a weekly basis. Please consider what's been shared in this week's Coffee with Colm and apply it into your thinking for this next week. And then most importantly, please come back next week when we share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. In the meantime, get some good coffee, get some R&R, get some fresh air. If you spend a lot of time alone, I recommend that you spend some time with people. And if you spend a lot of time with people, I recommend you spend a little time alone. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game and get organized for the week ahead and make next week count. And we'll see you here this time next week. Love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.